I told you I don't like this food, I said, my frustration clear. You're harassing me by making things I don't enjoy, aren't you? I added, feeling overwhelmed. But your husband likes it, she replied dismissively. Just cook something else right now, I insisted, my patience wearing thin. I had reached my breaking point. The constant yelling and screaming from my mother-in-law when she didn't like something had become unbearable. I wasn't sure if I could handle her sarcasm and criticism for the rest of my life. I had resigned myself to enduring her bullying, but then something happened that changed everything. My name is Ellen. My husband George and I have been married for 3 years, and we were living with my parents at their house. George, often away on business trips, was currently gone, and though I used to feel uneasy without him, had become so busy that I barely noticed his absence. My days were packed from dawn until dusk. I would wake up early to prepare a meal for my father-in-law, who rose with the sun. While he ate, I would clean the house and do the laundry. After he finished, I'd immediately clean up the dishes. Once the household chores were done, I'd rush to my part-time job. When I got home at 5 p.m., I'd cook dinner again, clean the house, and do laundry one more time. By the end of the day, I was exhausted. But the most draining part of my life was the constant bullying from my mother-in-law. Although she didn't work and spent all her time at home, she did no housework. My husband once told me he couldn't even remember what his mother's cooking tasted like, indicating she hadn't done much housework when he was growing up. Despite her inactivity, my mother-in-law had a knack for criticizing everything I did. She was meticulous about the food I prepared and always found fault with the cleanliness of the house. It felt like her hobby to belittle me. Known in the neighborhood as a show-off, she would parade around in ill-fitting jewelry, and though the neighbors would compliment her, they didn't genuinely think she looked good. They were hesitant to upset her, perhaps out of respect for my father-in-law, who was well-liked and involved in the community. He had been an executive at a prominent local company and was still connected with many people from his professional life. Though my father-in-law never imposed his will, my mother-in-law's overbearing nature was often overlooked by the neighbors, who chose not to confront her. Feeling isolated, I had no one to turn to in the neighborhood. However, when my father-in-law fell ill and was diagnosed with advanced cancer, my world shifted. I was grateful for him, who was the complete opposite of my mother-in-law. Despite his illness, his kindness and genuine concern for me stood out starkly against the backdrop of my mother-in-law's cruelty. I knew that our financial stability was largely thanks to my father-in-law's past contributions. To show my gratitude, I tried to take care of him as best as I could. I made sure to keep him engaged with conversations, played cards with him, and prepared easy-to-eat meals to ensure he received the nutrition he needed. He was always appreciative and often expressed his thanks. "Thank you," he would say. "I'm so happy every day because of you." No, I would respond. "I'm just doing what I can." "I'm sorry for the burden my wife has put on you," he would continue. "She doesn't do much around the house." It was clear that my father-in-law was concerned about my mother-in-law's lack of effort. His gentle nature made it hard for him to address her shortcomings directly. Still, it was comforting to know he understood how poorly she treated me. "I'm sorry for leaving everything to you, Ellen," he said. "My wife should be doing a better job. You don't have to force yourself to take care of me." "Please don't say that," I reassured him. "I just want to repay you for everything you've done for me." His eyes welled up with tears as he held my hand and said, "Thank you." But then everything changed. My father-in-law's condition suddenly deteriorated, and he was rushed to the hospital in an emergency. When the ambulance arrived, he was already in a coma. The doctors informed us that his prognosis was uncertain and that we needed to prepare ourselves for the worst. The sudden turn of events left me in a state of panic, struggling to process the gravity of the situation. I couldn't stop crying when I saw my father-in-law, his face etched with pain. I felt a pang of sympathy for my mother-in-law, believing she must be deeply distressed. Asked her how she was coping. However, her response was chillingly unexpected. "I'm sure he'll never recover from this, but at least his inheritance will be enough," she said, her words cold and calculating. Her callousness enraged me. Meanwhile, my father-in-law remained unconscious, though his breathing was steady. I visited him daily, speaking to him as much as I could, hoping that somehow my words might reach him and prompt a response. Yet he showed no signs of waking. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, never came to see him. When I encouraged her to visit, she would respond dismissively. "Don't tell me what to do. I'm too busy every day. Spending time at the hospital is a waste." Whenever I tried to persuade her, she would lash out with harsh comments. She even had the audacity to instruct me, "Hey Ellen, you're bringing clean clothes for him every day, right? Just pretend I did it. Don't make the mistake of saying you did." Her intention was clear. She wanted to appear benevolent while avoiding any actual responsibility. "He'll never wake up, and his inheritance will be mine," she declared. "Don't talk nonsense to people about it." It was evident that my mother-in-law's sole concern was the inheritance, revealing just how little she cared about my father-in-law's well-being. I was so infuriated by my mother-in-law's selfishness that I decided I had to take action. With my father-in-law no longer at home, her bullying had intensified. "Why aren't you starting dinner yet? It's too early for that," she snapped. "I'm heading to the hospital now and will be back soon to cook." "You really piss me off, Ellen," she continued. "I've told you countless times that the old man is only good for leaving me his money. He doesn't need visits or sympathy." Her harsh words about my father-in-law were too much to bear. I wanted to retort but managed to keep my composure. Then I received a call from the hospital with the news I had been hoping for. "Is it true?" asked, heart racing. Thank God. My father-in-law had finally emerged from his coma, and remarkably, his condition had stabilized. I rushed to the hospital with my mother-in-law. As we entered his room, I greeted him warmly. "Welcome back. It's so good to see you." He responded, "Me too. I'm sorry for all the trouble." My father-in-law smiled peacefully at me. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, put on an act of joy and said, "Honey, I've been taking care of you every day." "I see," he replied, noting that his clothes were clean. "You did all this for me?" "Yes, I did everything," she said, looking at me expectantly, as if she wanted me to agree with her performance. Ignored her silent cues and let her leave. It was clear from her expression that she was frustrated with me for not playing along. My father-in-law noticed her irritation, but chose not to comment. "Well, I'm going to go now," my mother-in-law said, her mood sour. "I have some errands to run, so please take care of things here, Ellen." She cast one last annoyed glance at my father-in-law before leaving the room. "Are you okay, Ellen?" he asked, noticing the tension. "Why do you ask?" I responded, puzzled. "My wife's attitude seemed strange," he said. "I thought it was you who took care of me all this time." I realized that he had seen through the pretense. Had been keeping evidence of my mother-in-law's actions, planning to share it when the time was right. I hadn't expected to reveal it so soon. "Well, I'm sorry if this disturbs you," I said, pulling out my voice recorder. "But please listen to this." I played the recording for him, feeling a mix of guilt and relief as he heard my mother-in-law's true voice. I knew my father-in-law would find it painful to hear everything my mother-in-law had said on the recording. Her words were filled with malice and greed. "When my husband dies, I want all the inheritance for myself. I want him to die soon. I don't want to take care of him. It's a waste of time." As I looked at my father-in-law with concern, I was surprised to see him laughing. "She's turned into such a greedy woman, hasn't she?" he said with a chuckle. "I wouldn't give any of my inheritance to someone like that." Despite his laughter, I could sense his deep anger and hurt. A few days later, my father-in-law's condition stabilized, and he was discharged from the hospital. Once home, my mother-in-law made a point of telling him how difficult it had been to care for him every day. My father-in-law listened in silence, not disputing her complaints. Shortly after, my husband returned from his business trip to visit his father. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said as he arrived. "But it's good to see you're doing okay." "Yes, I'm fine," my father-in-law replied. "Thanks to you and Ellen for looking out for me. I'm really glad you're here." My father-in-law seemed genuinely grateful for our support. From then on, my husband and I continued to care for him. Although he made some progress, his health remained fragile. I could see my father-in-law growing weaker each day. The reality of his approaching farewell was becoming clear. My husband and I made a pact to do our utmost for him until we had to say goodbye. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law remained unchanged. She continued to neglect my father-in-law's care, spending her time away from home. It seemed she believed that with my husband's return, she could relax and let us handle everything. The fact that both my father-in-law and husband were home made it harder for her to assert her dominance over me. As my father-in-law's condition deteriorated, he ate less and less. In his final moments, he managed to whisper his last words to us. "Thank you both so much. I've left a will for you to read after I'm gone. I appreciate your care until the end." With those words, his life came to an end. At his funeral, I was deeply moved by the sheer number of people who came to pay their respects. It was clear that my father-in-law had been greatly respected at work and cherished by many. In contrast, my mother-in-law seemed unnervingly lively. She acted as though she was the one who had brought everyone together, and even boasted about taking care of him until the very end. Her lack of tears and her disingenuous display of grief were unsettling. I wanted to confront her about her behavior in front of the attendees, but I refrained from causing a scene at my father-in-law's grave. The funeral went smoothly, and I was relieved that my father-in-law could rest in peace. However, when we returned home, I noticed a drastic shift in my mother-in-law's attitude. My mother-in-law's attitude changed drastically after the funeral. She was visibly exhausted and spoke with a mix of relief and satisfaction. "I'm so tired. Funerals are always so depressing," she said. "But now that I have the inheritance, I can look forward to the rest of my life." It was clear she believed that all of my father-in-law's inheritance was rightfully hers. She seemed in high spirits, making plans for her newfound wealth. That's when my husband presented her with the will. "I'm sorry to change the mood," he said, "but Dad left this will before he passed. I haven't read it yet, but I think it has something to do with the inheritance." "Don't need to see the will. It's all mine," she replied confidently. "Let's just sit down and read it," my husband suggested, trying to calm the situation. When my husband carefully opened the will, my mother-in-law grabbed the paper roughly and began to read. Her expression shifted from confidence to shock as she read the contents. What is this?" she stammered, her face going pale. I took the will from her trembling hands and read it myself. It stated that I was to inherit everything my father-in-law had. It also mentioned that the inheritance was to be used by both me and George as a couple, acknowledging my care for him, while my husband was away. This made perfect sense. My father-in-law's gratitude was evident in his will. "But all of it," my mother-in-law protested, her voice rising in outrage. "This isn't right. How can two strangers get everything?" She accused me of forging the will and made vicious remarks, calling me names and claiming that I must have manipulated my father-in-law. "Hey Mom, stop," my husband finally said, his anger rising. "You've never taken care of Dad. Ellen did. That's why he was so grateful to her." My mother-in-law, now hysterical, began to cry uncontrollably. Please, at least leave me the house." I felt a pang of sympathy for my mother-in-law, knowing how hard it must be to lose the home she had lived in for so long. To ease her distress, I decided to offer her a small portion of my inheritance. "You can keep the house," I said, looking her directly in the eyes. "I understand you're struggling financially, so I'll give you some money as well." But please, don't act like you did before. We're moving out, and you'll need to manage on your own." Her reaction shifted dramatically once she learned she would be receiving both the house and some money. "Oh, thank God. I was afraid I'd lose the house too," she exclaimed, her mood lightening. "If you're leaving, then get out already." With that, she returned to her old, unpleasant self. I was frustrated by how easily I had been manipulated by her false tears, but the thought of no longer living with her outweighed my irritation over the portion of the inheritance I was giving away. A week later, we began our move. We planned to temporarily live in an apartment while searching for a suitable location to build a new house. Thanks to the inheritance from my father-in-law, we would be able to construct a beautiful home. I also wanted to build a small altar in his honor to show my gratitude. I was thrilled at the prospect of a new chapter free from the constant scrutiny of my mother-in-law. On the other hand, she struggled to adjust to her new circumstances. Despite losing her primary residence, she continued her lavish spending habits, living beyond her means. As word of our departure spread, the neighborhood's attitude toward my mother-in-law shifted. The neighbors, once wary of her, began spreading rumors, further isolating her. Her extravagant lifestyle eventually depleted her savings and pension. She had to sell the house she had fought so hard to keep, and now, with no home or job, her current situation is unknown to me. As far as I'm concerned, she is no longer my concern. I have no interest in where she goes or what she does from now on.
I've made a significant decision regarding the $3 million. It's decided to split it between my mother and myself. This resolution came swiftly after my father's funeral. Robert, after examining the inheritance documents without seeking permission, remarked to me, "Kelly, don't be too greedy." Amidst thoughts of finally quitting my job, gratitude flooded my mind for the caring old man. "Are you referring to my dad?" I blurted out inadvertently, ignoring my confusion. Robert and my mother-in-law enthusiastically discussed plans to purchase a new car and indulge in shopping. Faced with this unexpected development, my emotions reached a boiling point. Burdened with household chores and insulted by their remarks about my father, I couldn't bear to continue living with Robert and my mother-in-law. Suppressing my anger, I forced a smile and replied, "Sure, feel free to use the money as you and my mother-in-law please." I am Kelly Cohan, a 38-year-old housewife, working alongside my husband. My parents, both doctors, ran a well-reputed clinic in our hometown. As an only child, I was showered with love. After graduating from the School of Pharmacy, I secured a job at a major pharmaceutical company. Though my parents wished I had become a doctor, they respected my decision. 10 years ago, my mother tragically died in an accident, leaving my father and me devastated. During those trying times, Robert, my then boyfriend, supported me. We met through a mutual friend, and 2 years after my mother's passing, Robert proposed. Robert was an ordinary salaryman in the food and beverage industry, but I believed we could overcome any challenge and find happiness together. My father was overjoyed when I shared news of our engagement. "I've heard how Robert supported you, Kelly. Thank you so much. Please continue to take care of her," he said, facing Robert with sincerity. Standing next to Robert, I felt a mixture of emotions. Immersed in a wave of happiness, we visited Robert's family home the following week to announce our impending marriage. His mother, adorned in flashy makeup and divorced from Robert's father, scrutinized me with an air of rudeness. "Marriage, huh? You're Robert's choice for you. Isn't she a plain choice for you? And she's older, right? Wouldn't a younger and prettier girl be better for you?" she said, evaluating me without any restraint. Quickly, Robert retorted, "Mom, you know I'm in pharmaceuticals, right? Kelly works there." Her father is a doctor and runs his practice. Instead of highlighting my character, Robert emphasized the financial advantages. In response, his mother's expression transformed into one of satisfaction. "Oh, Robert, you should have told me such important things earlier. That changes everything. I happily approve of the marriage. Nice to meet you, Kelly." "Thank you," she declared, granting her approval. With Robert overjoyed at his mother's acceptance, I couldn't shake off a lingering sense of unease. Despite the smooth proceedings and approval from Robert's mother, as we were about to register our marriage, my father, a doctor and real estate investor, presented me with an apartment in a luxury building in New York City as a wedding gift. Excitedly, I informed Robert, "Dad has given me this apartment as a wedding gift. It's our new home. Let's live here happily and peacefully together." Robert smiled, and our married life commenced. However, post-marriage, I began to notice something disconcerting. Robert, having lived with his parents until then, seemed almost incapable of handling household chores. He couldn't cook, didn't know how to operate the washing machine, and showed no interest in learning. Garbage would be left scattered around with no effort to dispose of it properly. While my intention was to conscientiously share household responsibilities, Robert's careless attitude only heightened my dissatisfaction. In the initial year of our marriage, I willingly took on all the household duties, despite some complaints, considering we were still in the honeymoon phase. However, the combination of work exhaustion and struggling to keep up with chores pushed me to my limit in our second year. Deciding it was time for a serious conversation, I bravely expressed my dissatisfaction to Robert. To my dismay, his response lacked gratitude or reflection. "I'm tired from work too. You're much better at chores than I am, right? It's better if you do them since I'm not good at it." He dismissed just like that. Consequently, Robert hardly contributed to the chores, leaving me to bear the brunt of our household responsibilities. But that wasn't the sole issue. After marrying Robert, I discovered that his mother harbored some peculiar ideas. Robert, not particularly interested in seasonal events, led me to send a quality scarf and carnations to his mother for Mother's Day. Despite selecting a nice scarf from a department store, his mother's displeased call criticized it as not being from a famous brand, deeming it absurd to send such a no-name item. Attempting to explain its quality proved futile, as she insisted on items from a very famous luxury brand. Stunned by her reaction, I reported this to Robert upon his return home. Instead of empathizing, he nonchalantly said, "What? Just do as she said." Robert failed to take my side, and from that point on, we started giving her cash as she demanded. By our 5th year of marriage, her frequent visits became a regular occurrence, always finding reasons to ask for money. Despite this, Robert, without any complaints, would always smile and comply with his mother's financial requests. I held a job while Robert's income remained limited and small, making our daily life just barely manageable. Desperation drove me to dip into our savings to cut living expenses. Despite my frustrations, I understood Robert's deep affection for his mother, who had supported me during tough times. She was the mother of someone important to me, and with that thought, I endured. Now, in our 8th year of marriage, I continued to handle all the household chores and kept giving money to my mother-in-law. One day, amidst this routine, my father, whom I hadn't seen in a while, unexpectedly called me. The story he shared during our rare meeting was shockingly unexpected. He revealed that he was suffering from terminal cancer and treatment was no longer possible. Overwhelmed with shock, tears spilled from my eyes. My father gently stroked my head, just as he did when I was a child, saying, "Kelly, this is fate. Let us accept it." Quietly, I questioned him, "Dad, why even you?" Thus, my days became a juggling act of work, household duties, and visits to my father's hospital. While work allowed some flexibility, managing the household was not easy. When I told Robert that my first priority would be caring for my father, he showed no reaction or willingness to help. "Well, it's tough with your father's sudden condition. Please do your best," was the only thing Robert said. He visited my father in the hospital only once. My father's care consumed all my time, leaving no room to spare for Robert. If I ever had a moment to worry about him, I prioritized my father. One day, as my father lay in his hospital bed, he suddenly asked, "Kelly, how is your marriage with Robert going?" Caught off guard, thoughts of Robert's demeanor at home and his mother's behavior flooded my mind. Unable to answer properly, I hesitated. Sensing my turmoil, my father comforted me, saying, "Kelly, you don't have to endure. Think about your happiness." Don't worry, you won't have any hardships after I'm gone. Tears flowed uncontrollably as my father silently and firmly held my hand. 3 months later, the inevitable moment arrived. My father passed away quietly, engulfing me in immense sorrow. Amidst funeral arrangements, Robert showed no interest in my grief and offered no help. Despite this, I was too consumed with preparations to notice. Many friends and acquaintances attended my father's funeral, making it a heartfelt farewell, even for the indifferent Robert and his mother. The day after the funeral, a lawyer called about my father's inheritance. Arranging a meeting, I listened to the surprising explanation. After deducting taxes like inheritance tax, my father's estate amounted to over $3 million. He had not only earned income as a doctor but also invested in real estate, leaving behind a vast fortune to be inherited by me, his only daughter. Wrapped in surprise and gratitude, yet trembling at the thought of handling such a huge amount of money, I stood on the threshold of a new chapter in my life. Upon returning home, I delved into the inheritance process. Spreading out the documents received from the lawyer on my desk, I tiredly read through them, feeling overwhelmed by exhaustion. Drifting off on the sofa for a brief moment, I awoke to the cheerful voices of Robert and his mother in the distance. Huh? Robert and mother too? When did you come? I inquired, still groggy. Approaching me with a beaming smile, Robert exclaimed, "Yes, Kelly, well done." Confused by his sudden excitement, I noticed the inheritance papers in his hand, the same documents I had been reviewing. "Wait, don't just read those without asking," I said, shocked and angry at Robert for looking through the documents without permission. Raising my voice, I expressed my displeasure. However, my mother-in-law, unconcerned, happily chimed in, "Wow, an inheritance of $3 million. Isn't that amazing? Now we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives." Confused by her sudden remark, I couldn't comprehend the shift in attitude. Robert then turned serious and continued, "By the way, about this $3 million, I decided that it will be split between me and my mom. It was right after my father's funeral." Having looked at the documents related to the inheritance I was supposed to receive without permission, Robert remarked, "Kelly, don't be too greedy. Oh, now I can finally quit my job. I have to thank the doting old man." "Doting old man? Are you talking about my dad?" I accidentally blurted out. Ignoring my confusion over this sudden turn of events, Robert and my mother-in-law excitedly discussed buying a new car and going shopping. At that moment, I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I teetered on the brink of exploding, burdened with household chores and enduring insults directed at my father. Summoning all my composure, I managed a forced smile and replied, "Sure, use the money as you and my mother-in-law please." "As you wish," I added, suppressing my seething anger. My mother-in-law, seemingly satisfied, cheerfully chimed in, "That's the spirit, Kelly. Quick to agree. Now make sure you work hard and earn money. I don't want our savings to decrease, so work hard." I nodded, pretending to heed her selfish words. Subsequently, Robert and my mother-in-law embarked on a spree of lavish spending, behaving as if they had lost their senses. Robert abruptly quit his job, and my mother-in-law practically moved in with us, incessantly staying at our house. They indulged in luxury brand items and frequented expensive restaurants, boasting about their sophistication. Meanwhile, all the household chores were dumped on me, as if I were a mere maid. Robert seemed convinced that my father's inheritance would materialize immediately. Carelessly withdrawing money from our joint account, my savings of $1 million dwindled rapidly. When I protested their excessive spending, Robert dismissed it, laughing. "What are you talking about? Isn't $3 million coming soon? This kind of spending is no big deal." Despite my warnings, Robert continued unchecked. A month later, he and my mother-in-law abruptly left for a trip to Hawaii, leaving me behind without an invitation. Alone at home, I resolved to take action. About a week later, while I was relaxing at home, a loud knock on the door jolted me from my thoughts. Glancing at the intercom monitor, I spotted Robert and my mother-in-law, both adorned in aloha shirts, standing at the front door. Calmly but with simmering anger, I inquired, What do you want? Robert's voice rang out, filled with confusion and frustration. What are you even talking about? Why won't the door open? Standing firm, I confidently replied through the intercom. Well, I changed the locks on the door, so of course it won't open. Why? Let's talk this over, Robert pleaded calmly, gesturing towards a nearby cafe. Please go ahead, I'll join you shortly, I suggested, knowing our conversation was futile at the entrance. Once I confirmed they have left, I made my way to the cafe. Arriving, I saw Robert and his mother already waiting, visibly furious. What's this about? Did you change the locks? Hand over the new keys right now, Robert demanded. There's no need for me to give you the new keys. You both need to leave that house, I calmly asserted, facing their growing anger. Presenting a piece of paper, I revealed my decision. A divorce petition I had already filled out. Divorce? You're serious about divorcing me? His mother's voice trembled with shock. Kelly, why has it come to this? She queried, bewildered. In a quiet tone, I addressed their panic. By the way, you've been spending lavishly every day. Are you sure your finances are okay? Robert vehemently defended, what money? Of course it's fine. Your father's inheritance is coming, right? There should still be over $50,000 in our joint account. Look, I'll show you right now. Opening his banking app, Robert's expression shifted abruptly. What? What's this? Why is the money gone? It was there just the other day, he exclaimed, his mother mirroring his confusion as she frantically checked her phone. A loud knock on the door jolted me from my thoughts. Glancing at the intercom monitor, I spotted Robert and my mother-in-law, both adorned in aloha shirts, standing at the front door. Calmly but with simmering anger, I inquired, what do you want? Robert's voice rang out, filled with confusion and frustration. What are you even talking about? Why won't the door open? Standing firm, I confidently replied through the intercom. Well, I changed the locks on the door, so of course it won't open. Why? Let's talk this over, Robert pleaded calmly, gesturing towards a nearby cafe. Please go ahead, I'll join you shortly, I suggested, knowing our conversation was futile at the entrance. Once I confirmed they have left, I made my way to the cafe. Arriving, I saw Robert and his mother already waiting, visibly furious. What's this about? Did you change the locks? Hand over the new keys right now, Robert demanded. There's no need for me to give you the new keys. You both need to leave that house, I calmly asserted, facing their growing anger. Presenting a piece of paper, I revealed my decision. A divorce petition I had already filled out. Divorce? You're serious about divorcing me? His mother's voice trembled with shock. Kelly, why has it come to this? She queried, bewildered. In a quiet tone, I addressed their panic. By the way, you've been spending lavishly every day. Are you sure your finances are okay? Robert vehemently defended, what money? Of course it's fine. Your father's inheritance is coming, right? There should still be over $50,000 in our joint account. Look, I'll show you right now. Opening his banking app, Robert's expression shifted abruptly. What? What's this? Why is the money gone? It was there just the other day, he exclaimed, his mother mirroring his confusion as she frantically checked her phone. I revealed the truth to them as they panicked, failing to grasp the situation. Of course it's gone. I'm divorcing you, so I moved that $50,000 to my account as part of the property division, I explained calmly. Robert's face twisted with anger momentarily, but then he smirked, almost recalling something. Fine, I'll divorce you then. Transfer the inheritance you got from your dad right away. After all, property acquired during the marriage is split half and half in a divorce, right? He retorted. Well, you might be misunderstanding something, I replied evenly. Why didn't you know that the inheritance I received, even though it was during our marriage, doesn't count for property division? There was a moment of stunned silence between us. Then Robert and his mother's expressions shifted drastically. Perhaps they truly believed they would receive part of my inheritance. I was astonished and could only sigh in disbelief. No, that can't be true. That's impossible. His mother protested, Her face flushed with a mix of denial and anger. "Please, check for yourself," I said mockingly. Robert started frantically searching on his smartphone. "It says here property inherited by one spouse from a parent is considered separate property. Therefore, it's not subject to division and can't be split between the spouses," he read aloud, his mother joining in shock. Desperate, Robert approached me, pleading, "Kelly, please don't divorce me. I have no savings and no job. How am I supposed to live if you divorce me?" Faced with his plea, I remained resolute. Realizing it was time to move forward, I spoke clearly and firmly. "What are you talking about? Take responsibility for your actions. I will never forget how you both treated me. I'm divorcing you. I'll go to court if I have to." Intimidated by my fierce demeanor, Robert and his mother shrank back in fear, whimpering softly. Later on, Robert and I went through the divorce proceedings without issues. The $50,000 I had moved from our joint account was recognized as part of the marital property division. Eventually, I managed to evict Robert and his mother from my house. They found themselves deeper in debt, living in a rundown apartment and working tirelessly every day to pay off their debts. In contrast, I sold a condo I used to share with Robert and moved into my father's apartment. With the inheritance I received, I now live comfortably. Grateful to my late father, I aim to protect my happiness and spend my days peacefully, cherishing my new life ahead.
I'm Karen, 33 years old, happily married to William, who's also 33, and together we have our precious 3-year-old daughter, Evelyn. William's family is deeply rooted in education. They run a successful tutoring center, with both his parents being former teachers and William holding a teaching license himself. Academia runs in their blood. It's surreal sometimes to think I'm part of such a distinguished family. Initially, my own parents and friends were apprehensive, but their worries were unfounded. The truth is, William's family is wonderful. Despite my more sporty inclinations, they embrace me wholeheartedly. My mother-in-law was especially delighted to gain a daughter. Though I felt a bit nervous initially, my buoyant and outgoing nature helped bridge any gaps. I chose to be authentically myself, and through that, we cultivated a strong and loving relationship. I'm a certified arborist, specializing in the health assessments, pruning, planting, and relocation of trees, along with offering consulting services. Achieving my certification required rigorous study, and even now, in the field, it remains physically demanding. This job demands both brains and brawn, and I take pride in excelling at both. Currently, my husband works as a tutor at his family's tutoring center, though he previously taught elementary school. Our paths first crossed when I visited his school for a consultation on tree care. After the birth of our daughter, I took some time for parental leave, only returning to work last year. With our little one still in her tender years, family takes precedence, a balance thankfully supported by my understanding workplace. Nonetheless, there are occasions when I struggle to make it home in time for pickup. In such moments, I'm grateful for the assistance of my mother-in-law and the flexibility of my husband, who steps in whenever possible. It's a life filled with fulfillment, supported by a network of understanding and assistance. In my married life, there was one individual who brought some challenges. My sister-in-law, married to my husband's brother. My husband has 2 siblings and he falls in the middle. The youngest brother remains unattached, while the eldest, Richard, is married to Sarah, the source of my concerns. Sarah is primarily a homemaker but also lends a hand with the financial and administrative tasks at the tutoring center. She and Richard have a 5-year-old son, and it appears they're gearing up to enroll him in a private elementary school. The first encounter with Sarah, during a visit to my in-laws, revealed her distinct demeanor. She was petite, impeccably dressed, with neatly styled hair, and her smile was captivating. Yet beneath that exterior, there lay another side to her. It was in the midst of assisting my mother-in-law in the kitchen when Sarah momentarily stepped away. Suddenly, her tone transformed as she confronted me. "Could you not put more effort into your appearance?" I was taken aback. The Sarah who had just been smiling seemed like an entirely different person. "You always seem to wear clothes that are worn and unkempt. Don't you realize you stand out for the wrong reasons? It's embarrassing." These clothes are just practical for me, especially since I'm constantly chasing after my little daughter," I explained. "I understand, I have a child too," Sarah responded with an exaggerated sigh, hinting at more she wanted to convey. However, her demeanor swiftly reverted to its usual state upon seeing my mother-in-law approaching. "Oh, what's the conversation about?" my mother-in-law inquired as she re-entered the room. "Just chatting about childcare," I replied, noticing Sarah's rapid shift in tone. It was almost as if she had a built-in switch that activated whenever my mother-in-law was around. My mother-in-law gave me a quizzical look, silently asking if that was the case. "Yes, just discussing our kids," Sarah chimed in, appearing content with the explanation. Skinny Sarah's snagged remarks didn't particularly intimidate me, but I couldn't easily brush off her level of sarcasm, especially without causing undue concern for my mother-in-law. It's not uncommon to hear about tensions with in-laws. It's practically a universal experience, what with the notorious mother-in-law factor. In contrast, my mother-in-law is a beacon of support, always championing my career endeavors. I initially believed I could deflect my sister-in-law's barbs effortlessly. However, every encounter seemed to escalate her belittling behavior. During a hurried work errand, I unexpectedly ran into Sarah, engaged in conversation with a group of her acquaintances. Offering a polite greeting, I acknowledged her presence. "Hello, Sarah." "Oh, hi there," came her response. Hastening on my way, I thought little of the brief interaction until later that evening when my home phone rang and Sarah's name flashed on the caller ID. "What do you think you're doing?" Sarah's voice sliced through the air, dripping with aggression. Right from the start. Confused, I asked, "What do you mean, earlier today? Don't you dare come up to me in public dressed like that." Her tone was harsh, her words cutting. "What's with your work attire? It's utterly inappropriate to stroll around like that. Did you see us? We're all moms, getting our kids ready for private school entrance exams. We live in a different world from you." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment as she continued her verbal assault without pause. "I was working, so yes, I was in my work clothes," I responded, trying to maintain composure. "I don't care about your excuses. Just steer clear of me next time we bump into each other outside, okay? It's embarrassing." "But isn't it even more awkward? We're family," I protested. "That's exactly my point," she shot back. "You don't fit into this family. Just so you know, I've never considered you a sister-in-law." With that, she abruptly ended the call, leaving me reeling from an unexpected onslaught of her feelings. It was clear she had gone out of her way to unload her frustrations. Despite her consistent complaints about me during family gatherings, it's when we're alone that my sister-in-law truly unveils her true colors. She prides herself on being a fashionable, high-society woman hailing from a well-to-do family. While I respect her preferences, I can't comprehend her incessant need to belittle me simply because I don't conform to her standards. Sure, she may sport elegant attire paired with athletic accessories, but why the excessive collection? I often wonder if her reserved husband, my brother-in-law, indulges her shopping sprees. Perhaps he's oblivious to this side of her personality. It's just part of who she is. I've refrained from sharing these observations with my brother-in-law and mother-in-law, opting to confide in my husband instead, given the mounting stress. "Really? She doesn't strike me as that type," he initially brushed it off. However, a few days later, my mother-in-law reached out, extending an invitation to a family dinner scheduled for the upcoming weekend. We live roughly 30 minutes apart by car. Typically, my mother-in-law doesn't meddle in our households. However, she insists on bringing the entire family together for special occasions like my father-in-law's birthday, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. This time, it was because my father-in-law's birthday was approaching. We managed to secure a private room at his favorite steakhouse this time around. It's our inaugural visit as a family, and the anticipation is palpable. "I hope you're looking forward to it," my mother-in-law remarked. "Oh, absolutely. Thank you," I replied, genuinely excited, albeit dreading the inevitable encounter with my sister-in-law. "You don't seem too thrilled. Is work keeping you busy?" she inquired. "Oh, I'm fine. Really," I quickly reassured her. "Uh-oh," had my tone given away my apprehension. I hurriedly attempted to dispel any concern. "Karen, if there's anything troubling you at home, please don't hesitate to tell me, okay?" She pressed further. Our home. Everything's under control. Even when work keeps me late, you've been a tremendous help. I truly appreciate all your support," I responded. "It's not about your family, though," she clarified. I was puzzled, failing to grasp her meaning. The weekend finally arrived. ushering in the much-anticipated dinner party in honor of my father-in-law's birthday. It was an opportunity to shower him and my mother-in-law with gratitude. I made a silent vow to immerse myself in the celebration and not allow my sister-in-law's venomous demeanor to dampen my spirits. Setting out early from home, I entered the private room at the restaurant with a sense of relief. My father-in-law, mother-in-law, brother-in-law, and sister-in-law had yet to arrive. I'd arrived ahead of schedule to ensure my father-in-law wouldn't be kept waiting on his special day, and also, if I'm honest, to minimize any interaction with Sarah. However, just as I settled in, my brother-in-law and Sarah made their entrance. "Hello," I greeted them, mustering a polite smile. "Hi, Karen," Sarah responded coolly. "Richard, good to see you," I added, attempting to maintain a cordial atmosphere. While my husband and brother-in-law engaged in conversation, Sarah wasted no time in approaching me, her gaze sweeping me from head to toe before emitting an audible sigh. "What on earth are you wearing?" Sarah's disdainful remark sliced through the air, delivered in a hushed tone as if attempting to avoid detection. It was the usual start to her demeaning comments. I forced a tight-lipped smile, trying to maintain composure. "Is this really the appropriate time or place for this?" I questioned through clenched teeth. "I chose this dress with the occasion in mind. Is it not suitable?" "It's not like it's from some high-end brand or anything. It's rather surprising you'd show up in such a cheap ensemble," Sarah continued, her tone dripping with condescension. "And those shoulders of yours for a woman, they're quite broad. The dress doesn't flatter you at all. And your accessories? Just a wedding ring? And no nail polish. Your hands look rough." I bristled at her critique. "I can't wear nail polish for my job. Ever thought about how inconvenient it would be to do household chores with long nails, Sarah?" I countered. "My work involves handling wood and soil, in addition to household tasks. My hands may not be dainty, but they're a testament to my hard work as a gardener. These hands, these shoulders, they're my pride." But she continued to belittle them, and I couldn't hold back any longer. "What's that supposed to mean? Are you insinuating that I don't do housework?" My retort seemed to strike a nerve as Sarah's voice suddenly rose in volume. "I've had enough of you," Sarah seethed, her frustration bubbling over. "I've tried to extend a helping hand out of kindness, but you never listen. And now you're resisting. It's unbearable to be associated with a rough woman like you." Feeling the weight of her words, Sarah seemed to momentarily lose her grip on reality and the context of the situation. "I've made a mistake," she murmured, her anger clouding her judgment. "Today is my father-in-law's celebration. Please just leave me alone." Confusion mingled with hurt as I struggled to comprehend her sudden outburst. "What? You're the one causing a scene. You're the one who doesn't fit into this family," I retorted, my patience wearing thin. "I've already told you I won't dine with someone as uncouth as you. Just go home." "Excuse me, I have to go home. This dinner was arranged by my mother-in-law, and the one clearly disrupting it is her. We can address your grievances about me later. Trust me, I have a few things to say to you as well. But for now, I've made up my mind to stand my ground. And you? You don't get to speak to me that way. Didn't you hear me? I said go home. In fact, consider leaving this family." Just as my husband began to approach, responding to Sarah's escalating voice, the door to the private room swung open. "It's you who should be leaving," my mother-in-law entered calmly yet assertively. Following her were my father-in-law and their youngest son, John. My mother-in-law gently shut the door behind them, signaling the end of the confrontation. "What?" Sarah's fiery demeanor seemed to evaporate as she suddenly realized the gravity of the situation. Her mouth opened and closed in disbelief, words failing her momentarily. What's going on?" "Everyone please, let's sit down," she stammered, attempting to regain control. Despite her soft tone, there was an undeniable authority in my mother-in-law's presence that compelled everyone to comply. "It appears we need to address something before we can proceed with the birthday celebration. I apologize for this disruption," my mother-in-law continued, glancing at my father-in-law, who nodded in agreement, before turning her attention back to Sarah. "Sarah, what exactly did you say to Karen?" Even my typically gentle mother-in-law could wield a sharp edge of sarcasm when necessary. Sarah, visibly flustered, attempted to backtrack. "Oh, I was just saying how much I'm looking forward to the meal today. Did I mishear something? I thought I heard someone saying leave." "Huh? No, it was just a minor disagreement. Just a playful banter." Sarah attempted to downplay the situation, still visibly perturbed. I couldn't help but admire her attempt to restore her usual cheerful facade. A disagreement. What sparked it? It appeared you were the one dominating the conversation. Have you been treating Karen like this all along? My mother-in-law's gaze bored into Sarah, her words cutting through the tension like a sharp blade. I wasn't mistreating her. I was merely offering some advice on etiquette and attire as a senior member of this household. Sarah defended herself, though her explanation rang hollow. Everyone should have the freedom to dress as they please as long as it's respectful. Karen's attire wasn't out of place. She simply chose non-branded clothing and kept her makeup and accessories minimal. I thought she should avoid causing embarrassment for you and the rest of us. Enough. My mother-in-law's sudden outburst startled both Sarah and me. The three brothers and my father-in-law were well aware of how formidable my mother-in-law could be when injured, but they remained composed, diverting their attention to the children with picture books and gentle conversation to ease the tension. No, Sarah, it's you who should be feeling embarrassed. I've sensed something amiss between you two, even during gatherings at our home. Initially, I assumed you were engaged in friendly chats, my mother-in-law continued, her tone cutting through the air with precision. Huh? Yes, friendly chats, exactly, Sarah chimed in, her desperation evident in her eyes as she cast a pleading glance my way. However, avoided meeting her gaze. For the record, Karen never once complained about you. She extended kindness, hoping you might eventually change your approach, but instead, you chose to escalate, my mother-in-law asserted, her words carrying a weight of disappointment. Stammering, Sarah attempted to formulate a response only to be met with my mother-in-law's unwavering scrutiny. And you always dress impeccably with an extensive collection of handbags. My mother-in-law continued, her tone growing sharper. But where does all that money come from? Just as Sarah thought she had regained control of the conversation, an unexpected question left her stunned. That money, it comes from we compensate you for your assistance with the tutoring center's finances, she stammered, her attempt at an explanation faltering. Even if my son has given you permission to use those funds as you see fit, it hardly seems sufficient to account for your lavish purchases of designer clothes and handbags. Well, you see, Sarah began, her voice trailing off as my mother-in-law's pointed inquiry pierced the air. Are you taking advantage of your position overseeing the household finances to fulfill your own desires? My mother-in-law pressed further. What do you mean? Sarah's confusion was palpable, her words stumbling over each other in a desperate attempt to deflect the accusation. I couldn't help but share in her confusion. I, too, had often wondered about the source of their wealth. Initially, I had assumed my brother-in-law was simply a generous provider. Perhaps he entrusted all financial matters to Sarah. It troubled me to think he might have been oblivious to their spending habits, perhaps swayed by Sarah's facade of being a dutiful wife. In that light, I almost felt sorry for him. So, you've been splurging recklessly, and now you're considering sending your child to a private school? My mother-in-law queried. Surely, you've been setting aside funds for their education, haven't you? Well, you're not suggesting we foot the bill, are you? Sarah hesitated, her response tinged with uncertainty. No, not at all, but he's your beloved grandchild after all. It became clear that Sarah had been counting on my father-in-law and mother-in-law's financial support all along. Naturally, we adore our grandchildren. We're prepared to assist them financially if necessary, my mother-in-law affirmed. Really? But only after you're no longer living under our roof? I interjected, taken aback by the implications. What? No, that's not what I meant. I apologize for telling you to leave, Karen, Sarah interjected, addressing me by name for the first time. You'll forgive me, won't you? We're practically sisters, after all. Sisters only as long as you're married to my brother-in-law. My mother-in-law glanced at me, silently encouraging me to continue. Even if it's official, I don't want to consider you family. I don't see you as a sister, I stated firmly. Sarah's response was a startled noise, clearly caught off guard. And that's not all. It seems you've been dipping into the funds from the tutoring school, my mother-in-law continued, her words landing like a bombshell. Sarah was rendered speechless, her eyes widening in shock. Is that true? I couldn't hide my surprise at my mother-in-law's revelation. While I had suspected Sarah might be using household funds, I never imagined she would touch the money from the tutoring school operated by my in-laws. You managed to evade detection for some time, so it took us a while to uncover your actions. Even Bob, who has overseen our accounts for years, fell victim to your manipulation, my mother-in-law continued, her tone stern. Sarah's complexion paled visibly. You've been making purchases like gift baskets for our suppliers, showing appreciation to teachers, and hosting seminars, all under your purview. The expenses on the receipts gradually escalated. You offered excuses, claiming you were fulfilling birthday gift requests or acting on behalf of me or my son. But that's simply not. Sarah interjected, her voice shaky, attempting to deny the accusations. You've been purchasing items under false pretenses, mislabeling them as gifts. This is unprecedented. But Bob trusted you as our son's wife. He was informed that you were treating part-time lecturers to lunch, but in reality, you were indulging in tea and dining with your circle of friends, my mother-in-law continued, her disappointment evident in her voice. The suspicious transactions on the receipts began to multiply, and Bob eventually brought his concerns to our attention. Even before that, our son had initiated an inquiry after noticing irregularities, she added, her tone growing increasingly grave. What? You've betrayed the trust of everyone who believed in you. It appears that appearances matter more to you than anything else, my mother-in-law accused. Sarah turned to my brother-in-law, as if pleading for assistance, her voice barely above a whisper. However, he met her gaze with a cold stare, remaining silent. And if all these allegations hold true, I can hardly blame him, my mother-in-law continued, her gaze shifting to me. Karen, on the other hand, is the epitome of selflessness. While she may not prioritize fashion, she consistently places the needs of her family and her profession above her own. You may not take an interest in her work, but being a certified arborist is a remarkable achievement. I have no doubt she worked diligently to attain it. As Sarah sat there, rendered speechless and defeated, my mother-in-law shifted her focus to me. Unintentionally, tears welled up in my eyes at her unexpected words. I admire her, my mother-in-law began, her voice carrying a tone of genuine respect. I believe that if she wishes to continue her work, it's our duty to support her. Have you ever witnessed her in action? She's vibrant, unafraid to get her hands dirty or soil her clothes. And yet, you ridicule her. I remained silent, overcome with emotion, while Sarah was unable to muster any retort or defense. She simply hung her head in shame. While our tutoring school may not boast the grandeur of major corporations, we prioritize our teachers and students, earning their trust, my mother-in-law continued, her words resolute. We've steadily grown by addressing each student's unique needs and those of their families. What truly matters are the people and their hearts. It's you who doesn't belong here. It's you who should leave. My mother-in-law's decisive stance left an indelible impression on me. Sarah, who had meticulously crafted an image of a flawless, sophisticated wife, was abruptly ousted from her affluent family. Despite attempts at reconciliation from my brother-in-law, Sarah's refusal to acknowledge her misdeeds and her simmering anger led to the serving of divorce papers. With the truth of her embezzlement exposed, Sarah's hopes for compensation vanished, leaving her with nothing. Meanwhile, my brother-in-law, supported by our father-in-law and mother-in-law, vowed to maintain stability for their son. Sarah, who habitually prioritized her own desires, would vent her frustrations onto her son when things didn't go her way. Yet the young boy remained resolute, finding solace in the reassurances of his father and grandparents. Although Sarah had insisted on sending him to a private elementary school against his wishes, he now enjoys carefree days spent playing with our daughter, free from the pressures of forced academics. Naturally, my husband and I are eager to offer our support in any way possible. During a relaxed day spent at my in-laws' home, my mother-in-law approached me with a heartfelt apology. I deeply regret any discomfort we may have caused you. We should have been more observant, she expressed sincerely. Oh, please don't worry about it. I wasn't truly bothered initially, I reassured her. If you ever find yourself in need of assistance in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, she offered kindly. Yes, I replied, recalling your earlier sentiment, what's important is people and hearts. Suddenly, I noticed my mother-in-law's puzzled expression as I gazed at her intently. It's nothing. I was simply admiring your resilience, I clarified. Well, thank you, but the real admiration should be directed towards you and your talent for creating such stunning gardens, she countered graciously. Perhaps I'll enlist your help with ours next time. I've been meaning to replant the flower beds. Oh, definitely. I'd be thrilled to lend a hand, even if it's just for fun. Just give me a shout whenever you're ready, I responded eagerly. You should consider charging her, Mom. She can be quite demanding, my husband interjected with a playful tone, eliciting laughter from all of us. It was a moment of genuine warmth and camaraderie. Value people, cherish hearts. Those words echoed in my mind, leaving a lasting impression. As I looked around at my beloved family, I made a silent vow to treasure these moments and to prioritize laughter and joy in our future together. My name's Amanda, a 28-year-old married to Tom for 2 years now. We met back in university and hit it off right away. Unlike most, I opted out of the 9-to-5 grind post-graduation, diving into the world of stocks and foreign exchange trading instead. It's been a lucrative journey, though my folks keep nudging me toward a more stable career path. Thankfully, Tom gets it. He's my rock, always by my side since our college days. Socializing isn't my forte, but with Tom, I can be myself. Family dynamics? Well, mine's a bit distant. They see me as the odd one out, so our get-togethers are fewer these days. Tom's side, on the other hand, is closer-knit, parents and an older brother, Jeff. During our visit to Tom's family to share our wedding news, they bombarded me with questions about my career. Every time, Tom was quick to defend me. Amanda's pursuing her passion, and that's what counts. Jeff, in particular, seemed fixated on my job, probing incessantly. His persistence grated on my nerves, and I finally snapped with a casual remark. I dabble in part-time work. Jeff's smug chuckle followed as he retorted, should have led with that. Job stability's a luxury these days, you know. Jeff's patronizing demeanor grated on my nerves, but I brushed it off. After all, I wasn't marrying him. Tom's constant apologies were enough for me. His support meant the world. Despite Jeff's relentless belittling, it was ironic considering his position as an associate professor at a university. I couldn't help but feel sorry for his students. Now, Jeff was gearing up for his own wedding, and Tom and I were on the guest list. The bride-to-be happened to be the daughter of Jeff's university president. The event boasted a sizable guest list. Marrying into such a prestigious family undoubtedly secured Jeff's future. His arrogance reached new heights as he taunted me once more at the wedding. Having a part-timer as a sister-in-law is embarrassing. No wonder your name's missing from the directory. Perplexed, I glanced at the wedding directory to find my name conspicuously absent. Tom was ready to confront Jeff, but I waved him off. It's fine, Tom. I couldn't care less about formalities, I assured him, diffusing the tension. Jeff's smirk widened as he fired back, exactly, best to stay in the shadows, especially on a day like this. His next directive was even more demeaning. He instructed us not to serve drinks, fearing the inevitable question about my occupation. It would be inconvenient if you had to admit to being a part-timer when guests inquire. Just keep quiet, he declared triumphantly before striding off, leaving us seething. Tom, still seething, struggled to contain his anger. I'm truly sorry for my brother's appalling behavior. Tom's apology was sincere, his eyes betraying a hint of guilt. Unexpectedly, I found myself apologizing as well. I should be the one apologizing. I never intended for you to bear the brunt of his rudeness. My apology seemed to ease Tom's distress, finally coaxing a smile from him. On the day of the wedding, neither of us felt inclined to celebrate Jeff and his new wife. Taking Jeff's advice, we opted to indulge in the lavish spread instead. True to the stature of a university president's daughter's wedding, the food was exquisite, and we savored every bite. The gifts, heavy with anticipation, hinted at opulence. However, our excitement was deflated when we unwrapped a box at home to find a bowl adorned with a portrait of Jeff and his wife. Even Tom, usually patient as the younger brother, couldn't hide his exasperation. This is the last thing we need. I'd rather not have a constant reminder of my brother's face, but we can't just toss it, and it's hardly useful. Yet I saw an immediate solution. The bowl was just the right size and depth for a cat's dish. What if we repurpose it for the cat's food? Would that be disrespectful to your brother? I asked. Tom burst into laughter. It's absolutely perfect for the cat. The thought of my brother and his wife being licked by our feline friend every day is oddly satisfying. With Tom's blessing, the gift bowl found its new purpose as our cat's designated dish. A month down the line, I found myself needing to make several visits to the university where Jeff now held a position. The thought of encountering him, particularly since he'd married into the university's upper echelons, filled me with dread. Yet I reasoned I'd be safe enough. The campus was vast, and my business lay in a separate department from his. However, luck was not on my side. Barely setting foot on campus, I collided with Jeff. His expression shifted from surprise to hostility upon spotting me. Hastily, I averted my gaze, hoping to slip by unnoticed. But Jeff had other plans. He stormed over, accusing, "What are you doing here? I'll have you arrested for trespassing." Jeff's booming voice attracted a swarm of curious students. In their presence, he launched into a tirade, mocking me openly. "What's someone like you doing here? Scavenging for a free meal in the cafeteria?" My shyness kept me silent, feeling Jeff's amusement. He turned to the eager audience of students, regaling them with tales of my supposed inadequacies. "This woman, a perpetual part-timer, even with a college degree. Study hard, kids, or you'll end up like her." As laughter rippled through the crowd, I felt the sting of humiliation, on the verge of tears. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through Jeff's ridicule from behind. I turned to find a reassuring sight. A professor I recognized. "What's going on here?" "She's my guest, invited by my brother-in-law," he interjected. Jeff faltered momentarily, but quickly rebounded. "Must be some mistake. She's just a part-timer," he insisted. However, another professor, arriving late to the scene and acquainted with me, set the record straight. "No, she's not a part-timer. She's a research collaborator in the economics department." Despite the other professor's clarification, Jeff remained skeptical. His marriage into the university's upper echelon seemed to have inflated his ego, leading him to disregard even the senior faculty. Recognizing the futility of reasoning with Jeff, the professor who had invited me intervened, taking my hand and guiding me away from the confrontation. As we departed, the students scattered, sensing the tension. However, Jeff's irritation was palpable. He trailed after us, abruptly barging into the room. Despite the presence of numerous senior professors in the room, Jeff persisted in his derision. "What's all this about? She's just a part-timer, isn't she? Clueless girl, stay out of the university's way," he sneered. His offensive remarks sent a ripple of discomfort through the senior faculty present. One of them hurriedly escorted Jeff out of the room, but not before he muttered a threat to Tom. "Your career is toast." Unfazed by the consequences, Jeff seemed emboldened, secured his alliance with the university president. However, the president himself entered the room at that moment. Without hesitation, he offered me a sincere apology. "I offer my sincerest apologies. Our associate professor's conduct was entirely inappropriate. Please accept my apologies on his behalf," the president expressed, his tone contrite. The other professors echoed his sentiments, expressing regret for the incident. I graciously accepted their apologies, though inside, fury simmered close to boiling over. Yet I maintained a composed exterior, a testament to my maturity. My encounter with the president that day was unexpected. I had been at the university conducting research with the economics department on financial engineering. This research involved validating the theories I utilized in my stock and forex investments. Ever since my university days, I've employed these theories in my financial endeavors, exchanging insights with a professor I connected with through social media. Recognizing the success of my investment strategies, the professor invited me to collaborate on research at the university. While the university had suggested I take on a lecture role multiple times, my discomfort with public speaking made it unfeasible. However, the research collaboration offered mutual benefits, prompting me to visit the university several times a month to validate our findings. It wasn't until Jeff's marriage that I realized we were at the same university. Glancing through the wedding guest list, I recognized the name, the bride's father, who happened to be the university president. Despite the presence of other university-affiliated guests, I went unnoticed, my name erased from the list, and I was instructed not to serve drinks, confining me to my seat for the duration of the event. Given the grandeur of the wedding, it was no surprise that someone as unassuming as me went unnoticed. However, the reason for the president and professor's panic lay in my status as a significant benefactor of the university. Ever since I began collaborating on research, my investment performance had soared, prompting substantial annual donations. Moreover, the theories I delved into were gaining traction among hedge funds and international investors, further bolstering the university's coffers through donations. For a private university like ours, such financial support is indispensable. Any discord with me could spell disaster. My ire, provoked by Jeff's insolence, might lead to the termination of our research collaboration and subsequent donations, jeopardizing the university's operations significantly. The day's agenda veered away from investment theory discussions. Instead, it was a flurry of apologies from the president and professors, though no resolution was reached. Before departing, I sought a private moment with the president. "Did you know that your sister-in-law, the associate professor from earlier, is my brother-in-law, Jeff?" I revealed to the president and professors, eliciting surprise from the gathered group. It seemed none had made the connection before. Emboldened by the moment, I decided to share my candid thoughts. Jeff's constant mockery of me raises doubts about his suitability as an educator, I asserted, my frustration evident. It was a rare display of passion from me, given my usual nerves in such situations. Reflecting on it later, I felt a tinge of embarrassment mixed with admiration for my unexpected outburst. Following my departure, it appeared that Jeff's behavior became a subject of concern within the university. His persistent arrogance toward his superiors, even after marrying the president's daughter, had garnered criticism. Moreover, his reputation among students was tarnished. His appointment as associate professor seemed to be a matter of nepotism, linked to his relationship with the president's daughter, inviting further scrutiny. The president, in defending his sister-in-law, inadvertently drew censure upon himself, risking his own position as head of the university. Unaware of the president's disapproval, Jeff's arrogance only seemed to swell. Ignorant of the critique from his most influential supporter, he continued his derisive behavior, targeting me once more upon my return to the university. "Back for more, huh? Still playing the part-timer card? Just because you're cozy with the economics professors doesn't give you license to act all high and mighty," Jeff jeered, his words dripping with disdain. It was a bitter pill to swallow, knowing that such rudeness came from an associate professor. The more I endured Jeff's mockery at the university, the more disillusioned I became with its leadership. The president's reluctance to reprimand his own brother-in-law for his arrogance made me question the university's standards. Contemplating ending our joint research became a serious consideration. Each visit to the university felt increasingly futile, with Jeff's taunts adding insult to injury. I found myself tuning out his derision, pondering the merits of discontinuing our collaboration. Lost in my thoughts, I barely registered Jeff's latest jibe until his voice boomed louder than ever. "Hey, are you even listening? Or are you too dim-witted to follow a simple conversation?" But before I could respond, a commanding voice cut through the air. "Jeff, you are the fool," the president's voice thundered, echoing through the room. The president's arrival cast a hush over even the usually brash Jeff, freezing him in place like a statue. Witnessing his rare moment of stillness, I could have contained my laughter, bursting into a chuckle. Jeff's glare was swift, but it was swiftly extinguished by the president's cutting words. "As of today, you are no longer affiliated with this university. Gather your things and leave immediately." Jeff seemed momentarily befuddled, his gaze fixed on the president's stern expression. Then, in a bizarre turn, he adopted a casual tone. "Father-in-law, what's with the sudden theatrics? Are you trying to pull a fast one on me?" The president's face flushed crimson with rage as he bellowed once more. "You have no right to address me as your father-in-law. Furthermore, I demand you divorce my daughter." The mention of divorce caught me off guard, but before I could process it, a young woman and a man in formal attire entered the room. As my eyes met the woman's, a sense of familiarity washed over me. Glancing at Jeff, I noticed his stunned expression. It dawned on me, the woman standing before us was Jeff's wife. Yet her unexpected appearance left me puzzled as to why she had come. With a stern countenance, Jeff's wife began to speak deliberately. "I noticed your odd behavior, so I had a lawyer investigate. They managed to obtain these photos." As she spoke, the man in the suit produced several photographs from a bag, displaying them before Jeff. Peering over Jeff's shoulder, I couldn't help but gasp at the sight of him arm in arm with an unfamiliar woman. Jeff appeared taken aback, mirroring my own astonishment. I understood why the president had mentioned divorce, yet I felt it was an uncomfortable subject for discussion in the midst of the university, especially with me present. Nevertheless, Jeff's wife pressed on, addressing Jeff with palpable disdain. "That's divorce, just as Dad mentioned. You were merely using me, weren't you? You never truly loved me." The unfolding drama had my heart racing, but witnessing Jeff's tearful countenance on the verge of breaking down brought a sense of satisfaction. Furthermore, as Jeff's wife announced her intention to pursue property division, Jeff began to offer apologies in a panicked frenzy. "I won't betray you again. Please forgive me." Observing Jeff's distress was oddly gratifying, almost tempting me to capture the moment to share with my husband. Perhaps the president had summoned me here today to witness Jeff's comeuppance. Despite Jeff's pleas, his wife remained resolute, informing him that she had already retained legal counsel. The swift progression of events caught me off guard, and as I observed Jeff's bewildered state, I sensed his mounting frustration turning towards me. "What are you staring at? You're just a part-timer. This doesn't concern you. Leave," he snapped, his voice laced with venom. It was then that the president intervened on my behalf. "You always belittle Amanda for being a part-timer, but she's a skilled investor. She's actively engaged in joint research with the economics department and makes generous donations. She's far more valuable than you'll ever be," the president declared, his words carrying weight. At last, Jeff seemed to absorb the president's words, falling silent as he cast a glance in my direction. Sensing the opportune moment, I decided to confront my brother-in-law. "I expect an apology from you as well," I asserted. With reluctance, Jeff offered his apology. It became evident that President Bob had orchestrated this entire sequence of events with the intention of prompting Jeff to apologize to me. First, by revealing evidence of Jeff's infidelity to weaken him, then by highlighting my accomplishments to further diminish his standing and compel an apology. It seemed to be the president's calculated plan all along. Jeff's apology brought a sense of relief, leaving me feeling rejuvenated. As Jeff hung his head in defeat, the lawyer delved into the intricacies of the property division demand. Meanwhile, I took my leave from Bob, prepared to depart. Before parting ways, Bob urged me to maintain my support for the university. However, I hesitated, expressing my reservations about the university due to Jeff's behavior, along with personal matters demanding my attention. Promising to reconsider, I bid Bob farewell and left for the day. Arriving home, I recounted the Jeff saga to my husband Tom. He was well aware of my disdain for Jeff, and hearing about his apology, affair, and subsequent despair brought genuine joy to Tom's face. Yet a tinge of regret colored his expression as he remarked, "Man, I wish I could have witnessed his downfall. Still, this feels fantastic." Then, his tone shifted slightly, feigning frustration as he exclaimed, "Why did you snap a picture?" Our eyes met, and we both dissolved into laughter. But I had even more good news to share. "Guess what? It seems I'm pregnant," I revealed. Tom's joy erupted, celebrating as if he'd hit the jackpot. Lately, I'd been feeling under the weather, suspecting the cause, and a visit to the OB/GYN on my way home confirmed the pregnancy. I couldn't shake off a twinge of guilt for Bob, who had gone to great lengths to engineer Jeff's apology. However, I made the decision to suspend my collaboration with the university for the time being. While Bob expressed disappointment, he understood and agreed to wait until I finished focusing on child rearing. During our conversation, I casually inquired about Jeff's whereabouts. Bob informed me that Jeff, now officially divorced, was not only unemployed but also struggling to secure a new job. Despite his attempts to market himself to other universities, Jeff's reputation for arrogance preceded him, resulting in a lack of job offers. It seemed Jeff's hubris had backfired, with consequences far more significant than anticipated. Suddenly, I realized that the photos of the inexpensive wedding gifts we had repurposed as cat dishes had disappeared. Whether due to the use of cheap gifts or the couple's divorce, their images had vanished along with them. "Let me introduce her. This is my girlfriend, Emily," Tom said with a smile. The woman beside him greeted everyone. "Nice to meet you all." "Your girlfriend?" I was in shock. Tom casually responded, "Oh right, I haven't told you. I'm going to marry Emily, so I want a divorce." "What?" I was too stunned to speak. Tom continued, "I realized my parents were right. Being with an older woman like you is getting tough. Emily's young, she's 23. New houses and women are always better, right?" Emily nodded in agreement. "And about the accident you mentioned, it's no big deal, right? You broke a bone and now you're slacking off at home. We'll take the house once we divorce." I was so shocked by his outrageous comments that I forgot to get angry. It was impossible to continue the conversation. Taking a deep breath, I presented a signed divorce document and said, "Okay, here are the divorce papers." "Oh, you're well prepared," Tom said, jubilant. Leaving the couple behind, I began preparing to leave the house immediately. As I was packing, Tom spoke up. You have nowhere to go, right? There's an apartment near the station within the range of $100. It's old and has cracks in the walls, though. Tom, that's so mean, Emily chimed in. The two of them laughed ignorantly. I didn't respond and slammed the front door. Let them laugh. I have places to go, places they could never imagine. My name is Catherine White. I'm turning 40 this year. I married Tom when I was 35, 3 years ago. We don't have kids and live together in the house I bought when I was single. It's secondhand but refurbished and quite clean. Why did I buy a house before getting married? It goes back to my childhood. We were poor because my father was gone. To be precise, he disappeared before I could remember him. I lived with my mother, who loved me deeply, but life was tough with just the two of us. Still, having my mother was enough. But during my high school years, she passed away due to an illness. It was devastating, but I had no time to mourn. I had to survive on my own. After graduating from high school, I started working at a small advertising agency. I worked tirelessly in sales. In my 30s, I was so dedicated to work that I never imagined I'd marry, but I wanted a place to call my own, so I saved up and bought a cheap house. I had to take out a loan, but I paid it off early. Around that time, I met Tom. He was from a client company. Tom seemed unreliable to me since he was 5 years younger, but he admired my work ethic. We started seeing each other. It was surprising but also delightful. I had never had anyone openly express their feelings for me before. We started dating and quickly got married. At first, Tom's parents disapproved of our marriage. I was older, and they knew I had no family. But Tom defended me, saying, even if she has no parents, Catherine works hard. Don't say such things. I was genuinely happy. I thought we could make it work. But that changed. The shift in Tom's behavior began less than 6 months after we moved in together. One evening, after returning from work, he sat down at the dining table. Dinner was meat and potatoes, a salad, and eggplant soup. After eating for a while, Tom stopped. What's wrong? I have been meaning to say this. The soup, it's from this morning, right? I don't like leftovers. Can you make a fresh one for dinner? But it takes time. I also work and I might not make it in time. Sorry, but that sounds like an excuse. My mother always made different soups for breakfast and dinner, and there should be at least 5 side dishes. Can you do that? I was taken aback by the sudden situation. I had felt this way for a while, but kept it to myself. While I'm not great at cooking, it's hard to do intricate dishes while working too. Your mother is a full-time housewife, right? I work and can't cook that much. That's why you shouldn't make excuses. It's expected of a housewife. You should at least do that much. I was frustrated by Tom's outdated views, but I held back my words to avoid worsening the mood, though I was discontent. I wanted to avoid arguments, so I started finishing work on time and rushing home to cook. However, Tom's actions and words became increasingly demanding. Did you use cheap meat for this? This side dish is the same as yesterday. Please space them out at least a week. With each of his complaints, the time I spent cooking became more overwhelming. Before I knew it, I was spending all day thinking about meals. Tom's nitpicking didn't stop at just food. He checked every corner of the house for dust and criticized my cleaning. If you have so many complaints, why don't you do it yourself? I finally snapped. What are you saying? Housework isn't my job. Don't shift the responsibility. Maybe you can't handle chores because you didn't have parents around. I was stunned by his words. He had never belittled me for not having parents before. Was this Tom's true nature? The man I knew before felt like an illusion. Regardless, I wished for the old Tom to return, but the situation only worsened. With Tom's endless demands, I was completely drained, and balancing work seemed impossible. On Tom's suggestion, I decided to quit my job. I had loved that job since graduating from high school, but it seemed there was no choice. Looking back, maybe I should have left him then. But I had always prioritized work over romance and didn't know what a normal family looked like. I thought perhaps meeting Tom's demands was a housewife's duty. Maybe all I had to do was bear it a bit to maintain a peaceful home. Now that I was a full-time housewife, I had much more time for housework. Tom's complaints decreased and I was genuinely relieved. I thought the problem was solved, but my friends knew Haas. It's so spacious and beautiful. The furniture was designed by famous designers and the appliances are all luxury items, they said. Oh really? I casually responded, handing Tom a glass of water. But compared to that, our second-hand house is a bit lacking. I wish we could at least replace this cheap furniture, Tom remarked. Cheap? The furniture and appliances were from my single days, but they were still in good condition. They weren't luxury items, but they weren't cheap either. Moreover, when Tom moved in, he had said, "Let's keep using these appliances and furniture." I reminded him of that, but he brushed it off. But honestly, after living with it, I feel new furniture would be better, he said without hesitation. Even if you say that, the current ones are still usable, I softly pointed out. Tom suddenly looked at me with a mocking expression. That's the frugal side of you. I wonder if you're just naturally stingy. What? Why would you say that? Anyway, I've quit my job, so we don't have that kind of money. You quit your job because you wanted to, didn't you? But you? Yeah, it's always my fault, he muttered dismissively and staggered off to the bedroom. How could he say such things? Anger started to boil within me, but then I thought maybe he's just drunk. He's just being brave because he's drunk. Don't mind. However, even when he was sober, Tom's attitude was getting worse. Our conversations became more hostile, and every time he spoke, it was to complain about me. What on earth happened to him? Then, without telling me, Tom went ahead and bought new furniture. On top of that, it seems he also got new golf equipment. He looked at the golf clubs with satisfaction, clearly pleased with himself. Tom has a regular job, but he doesn't earn much. He probably took out a loan now that I can't work. I was worried about repaying the loan. Anxiety grew in my heart. Then an unexpected event occurred. As usual, I was on my way to the supermarket to buy ingredients for dinner. While walking on the road, a loud horn blared from behind. Immediately after, I felt a huge impact, and then darkness consumed my consciousness. When I came to, I was staring at an unfamiliar ceiling. It seemed I was lying down. I felt pain everywhere and couldn't move. What happened to me? I wondered aloud. Oh, Miss White, have you awakened? A voice said. Where am I? You're in the hospital. You were brought in after a traffic accident. Traffic accident? I remembered leaving the house, but nothing after that. I moved my head slightly, taking in the impersonal bed, the attached IV drip, and the woman in a nurse's uniform. Was this really a hospital? Looking outside, it was already dark. I had left the house around 2 p.m., so a lot of time had passed. Later, a doctor came and briefly explained the situation. It seemed I was hit by a car whose driver was not paying attention while I was on my way to the supermarket. I didn't have life-threatening injuries, but I had several fractures and needed to be hospitalized for a while. I never imagined being in a traffic accident. After receiving an explanation about the hospitalization, the nurse spoke up. We've contacted your husband. From her hesitant expression, I had a bad premonition. I immediately called Tom. Hello, Tom. Yeah, Catherine. I got a call from the hospital. You had an accident. You're so clumsy. Come home quickly and make dinner. What? I'm going to be hospitalized from now on. I couldn't understand what he was saying, and when I retorted, Tom shouted back, Then what about the housework? What are you saying? Is the housework more important than me? Unbelievable. He was more concerned about the housework than his wife's condition. I felt myself becoming increasingly angry, and it soon turned into a quarrel. Arguing any further would be pointless, so I hung up the phone, still frustrated. Lately, Tom had been more harsh in his words, but I never realized he could be this cold. That day, I was filled with anger and physical pain, making it hard to sleep. But as the days went by, my strength gradually returned, and I started rehabilitation. Initially, moving was tough, but it became surprisingly enjoyable as I got used to it. Lying in bed, I often found myself lost in thought, so rehab was a welcome distraction. However, since that incident, I hadn't heard from Tom. I thought talking to him would just anger me, so I ignored him. Around that time, I occasionally passed an elderly man in the hallway. He was well dressed, so he wasn't a patient. I assumed he was visiting someone and didn't give it much thought, but he seemed to be looking my way. Are you Catherine White? Yes, I am. What can I do for you? I answered cautiously. At that time, I had no idea that this man would change my fate. Eventually, after about a month in the hospital, I was discharged. I hadn't fully recovered, but I was told all patient care would surface. I was finally going home after a month away. My home felt oddly nostalgic, but that feeling was short-lived. The moment I opened the door, I felt something was off. There were unfamiliar shoes, heels with flashy pink ribbons. Could it be? Rushing into the living room, I braced myself for what I might find. I noticed the entire house had changed. Not just the furniture, but even the electronics had been replaced with brand new, high-end models. The curtains were different too, making it feel like someone else's house. Ah, Catherine, you've been discharged. Tom emerged from the back, sitting casually. Next to him was a young woman. The woman with brown hair and a revealing outfit spoke lazily. Welcome back. Who are you? I was stunned. Tom smiled. Oh, let me introduce you. This is my girlfriend, Emily. Nice to meet you, she added. Your girlfriend? Yeah, I guess I never mentioned it. I am planning to marry Emily, so I want a divorce. What? I was at a loss for words. I've come to realize that what my parents said was right. Without proper parents, you can't manage household chores or finances properly. I thought you being older would be reliable, but living with an aunt has become tough. Emily's young, just 23. New homes and women are always better, right? Right. Emily tilted her head in agreement. And that accident of yours wasn't a big deal, right? Breaking a bone and then slacking on housework deserves a divorce. We'll be taking the house, by the way. Such outrageous statements left me too stunned to even get angry. Don't get me wrong, we're planning to buy a new house eventually, but this place is just a temporary one until then. When they say something as unreasonable as this, I'll lose all desire to even converse with them. The old Tom is gone. I've come to think of him as a monster, not a human with whom I can communicate. I shouldn't fight on the same level with them. I took a deep breath and presented a document. Okay, here are the divorce papers. Oh, you're well prepared. I had already signed the divorce papers in advance, considering the recent strange atmosphere. I thought this choice might come up eventually, so I quickly started packing my things. I needed to prepare to leave the house. As I was busy, Tom spoke to me. You don't have anywhere to go, right? There's an apartment near the station that rents for $100. It's run down and has cracks in the walls, though. Tom, that's so mean, Emily chimed in. Ignoring their mocking laughter, I slammed the front door with force. I took a moment to look back at the house, my castle that I worked hard to buy. Today is the last day I'll see it, but I had no regrets. I had a place to go. A week later, while relaxing in my new place, the doorbell rang loudly. Checking the monitor, I saw it was Tom and Emily. Ignoring them, I heard them shouting my name. Their frenzied state made me want to laugh. After observing for a while, I spoke over the intercom. What do you want? Why are you living in such a mansion? Tom asked. The mansion he referred to was where I currently lived. A 3-story building made of reinforced concrete on a massive plot, complete with a swimming pool. You came all the way here just to say that? No, I have a proposal. Open up. I want to talk face to face. It's probably just nonsense. No, it's important, Tom insisted. Annoyed with Tom's persistence, I thought this would be the last time and opened the door. I led them to the living room. I had been in touch with Tom about the change of house ownership, but I never told him where I lived. When I asked how he found out, it seemed he coincidentally saw me in town and followed me. He was expecting to see me entering a shabby apartment, but was shocked to see me entering this mansion. Tom, along with Emily, had concocted a bold plan. Tell me, are you living in this mansion because of some shady job? What? Why? I was taken aback by Tom's absurd claim. I saw you. You were with an old man entering this house. I get it. You don't want to admit it. You're poor, so you had to find that kind of work, right? But if you have such a wealthy client, I want you to introduce him to Emily. I work in a cabaret club, so I'm good at charming older men. I'm sure I can earn more than you, Catherine. What are you both talking about? The man you saw me with is probably my father. This house is also my father's house. What? That's a lie. You don't have parents, Tom insisted loudly, just as the door to the reception room opened. Seeing the middle-aged man who emerged, I called out, Dad. My father, I explained quickly. Surprised, my father sat next to me and greeted Tom. Ah, you must be Tom. My daughter spoke of you before. Nice to meet you. I'm Catherine's father, Robert Johnson. Wait, what's going on? Tom looked back and forth between me and my father, his eyes wide with surprise. It's understandable. I only recently reunited with my father while I was in the hospital. I began, explaining the situation. Yes, the middle-aged man who spoke to me that day was my father. My father was supposed to have disappeared. I had been told so by my mother. I thought there might have been a mistake, But after speaking with this man, I realized he was my real father. To start a business, my father went to America. After a while, once his business was on track, he planned to bring us over, but he was robbed there, losing everything. He lost all his investment capital, and even his means of communication was cut off. Stranded, he fortunately met a man who offered him a job at his company. Starting with menial tasks, he gradually got promoted and eventually became the right-hand man to the company's CEO. With the help of this man, he later started his own business. The business was successful, and my father achieved social success. But he was always concerned about my mother and me. He felt guilty for leaving us for so long and found it hard to return. Then his company decided to start a new venture in Japan. After much thought, he decided to come back. He built a house here and started looking for me and my mother. He then discovered that my mother had passed away and was deeply regretful. If only he had come back sooner. Wishing to see me as soon as possible, he visited me in the hospital. Learning the truth, I ended up living in this mansion owned by my father. I briefly explained all this. By the way, my father had also looked into Tom's affair. After occasional golfing outings, Tom would go to a hostess club where he met Emily. So, this is my family home. Understand, I never heard about you having a rich father all of a sudden, Tom murmured in a big voice. So, if you have so much money, will you come to the club where I work? Emily quickly tried to hand her business card to my father. True to the type of woman Tom would choose, she was incredibly bold. But my father stopped her immediately. I'm sorry, but I make it a point not to visit cheap imitation bars. What? Emily was speechless. My father frequented some establishments for work, but only the finest, high-end places. He would never go to a cheap club like where Emily works. Besides, I don't have money. Catherine inherited everything already. To the puzzled expressions of Tom and Emily, my father casually replied, around $800 million. It's the least I can do to make up for leaving her alone all this time. The two of them were dumbfounded, their mouths agape. I've heard about you from Catherine, especially your insults, my father continued. She worked hard, scrimping and saving from her meager salary to buy that house. She also did her best with household chores. Having no mother, she probably didn't get a chance to learn from anyone, yet you disparaged her and trampled on her feelings. I can't forgive you, especially when you cheated on her while you were married. If it comes to that, I can sue you. But Tom attempted to interject. Catherine's struggles were partly my fault too, my father continued, cutting him off. You mocked me for being poor and for not having parents. I'm fed up with someone like you who lacks compassion. Never come back to this house again. Goodbye. Is there anything else you need? If you're done, can you leave? I added firmly. Help! Tom and Emily screamed and ran away. Watching them go, my dad and I shared a laugh. It had been a while since I'd laughed so much. I knew I probably wouldn't see those two again. I could finally live in peace. Later, I found out about their subsequent misfortune. A typhoon hit the region where Tom and Emily lived, bringing heavy rain that flooded houses near overflowing rivers. Fortunately, my area wasn't affected, but their house suffered severe damage. Tom and Emily fled, but their expensive furniture, brand new golf equipment, and Emily's luxury items were all waterlogged. The house's pillars had rotted from being soaked for so long. With no place to stay, the two seemed to live in shelters for a while. Tom's family home was far away, and Emily's family situation was worse. Her parents were gambling addicts living in a tiny apartment. Emily, who worked at a nightclub, spent all her money. Tom was also in debt from buying expensive things. Tom, who relied on women for money, was now in trouble. The two, having no other options, had to move into a cheap apartment near the station that he had once told me about. It was ironic that Tom, who once mocked others, ended up living there. What you do to others will come back to you, I reflected. Unless they truly repent, they won't find peace. Meanwhile, I was thinking of job hunting since leaving my previous company. When I talked to my father about this, he offered me a position at his company. The job is in sales like before, and it's fulfilling. I'm still learning, but I work hard every day to be valuable. At my father's mansion, we often host home parties for business associates. My sales experience helps, and I can talk freely with anyone. I plan to work abroad in the future, so I'm also studying English. My father often tells me, you look livelier now compared to when we reunited. It feels like a lie that I used to be so irritated every day when I was with Tom. Life is unpredictable, I concluded. Even if times are tough, they won't last forever. If you keep looking forward, someone will always be watching over you. I believe that, and I want to keep living brightly. Get out of this house, she demanded, her voice cold and unwavering. I barely had time to react before she added, besides, I already have a plan for a new life for him. My mother-in-law, never one to change, had concocted an outrageous scheme. With a triumphant smirk, she said, "You incompetent wife, get your divorce." Something snapped inside me. "You'll regret saying that," I retorted. "Regret? Why should I?" She laughed dismissively. "Ha ha. Because this house," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "My name is Kelly, and I'm 34 years old. After graduating from college, I landed a job as an engineer at a major company. Since then, I've poured my heart into my work. It was during this period that I met Tommy, who would eventually become my husband. When I was 28, I encountered him through work. He was a salesman who frequently visited our office. Tommy was always friendly, greeting me with a warm smile even though our paths rarely crossed directly. It was at a company social event that we truly connected. The person in charge of our account had a high regard for Tommy, and after our brief introduction, extended an invitation for him to join us. That evening, Tommy and I discovered we had much in common. We exchanged contact details and soon began dating. 2 years later, we married. Our relationship has been a source of immense joy and support. Tommy has been my rock, especially when I face significant decisions like starting my own business. When I was contemplating leaving my job to freelance, I was filled with doubt. The uncertainties about steady income and potential vacations weighed heavily on me. But Tommy encouraged me, saying, "If you really want to do this, then go ahead and try. I'll support you no matter what." Despite my cautious nature, I took the plunge and resigned from my job. To my surprise, my freelance work took off beyond my expectations. My prior experience made me a trusted professional, and I began handling significant projects with a much higher income than before. Tommy and I were thrilled with the growth in our savings. While I was ecstatic about the financial success, what truly made me happy was his unwavering support. With him by my side, I felt I could tackle any challenge. These days, we enjoy traveling and driving together on his days off. We still save diligently, but also allow ourselves the occasional splurge. Our life together is fulfilling and joyful. Then, one day, while working from home, I started feeling unwell. When the discomfort persisted, I went to the hospital for a checkup. To my astonishment, I discovered I was pregnant. That evening, as I waited anxiously for Tommy to come home, I could hardly contain my excitement. When he arrived, I immediately shared the news. "I went to the hospital today," I said, a mix of nervousness and excitement in my voice. "Oh, I see," he replied, his tone unexpectedly subdued. "I'm sorry. I couldn't follow you there. How did it go?" my husband asked as he hung up his suit jacket. I chuckled softly and replied, "They told me I'm pregnant." He paused, staring at me in surprise. "What? Seriously?" "Yes," I confirmed, beaming. "I'm pregnant." A wide smile spread across his face. "Really? We did it. Thank you, Kelly." His joy was infectious, and I couldn't help but share in his excitement. We eagerly anticipated welcoming our baby together, committed to doing our best as a family. As we sat down to enjoy the dinner I had prepared, my husband continued to talk animatedly about our future child. We discussed the baby's potential gender and began dreaming about baby items. "If it's a boy," he said, "I want to teach him to play catch. And if it's a girl, I'd love to play house with her." I decided it was the right moment to share a thought that had been on my mind. "How about we build a house soon?" He looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" "Well," I explained, "we've saved up quite a bit of money. With a baby in the way, our current place might be too small. It could be a good time to invest in a new home. We could have a bigger space for the baby to play, a dedicated room for my work. Doesn't that sound dreamy?" He nodded, clearly pleased with the idea. "Yes, it does. We'll have a beautiful, spacious home for our new baby." We decided to start planning our new house immediately. On weekends, we visited open houses and worked on floor plans, aiming to complete the house before the baby arrived. About a month after learning about the pregnancy, we planned a visit to my in-laws to share the news. I felt a pang of unease. My relationship with my mother-in-law had always been strained. The drive to their house was about 30 minutes, but I seldom visited. During our early marriage, I'd made an effort to visit for Thanksgiving and New Year's. However, my mother-in-law frequently criticized my career, saying things like, "You're too focused on your job," and "When are you going to give us grandchildren?" Her comments were often harsh. "All you do is sit at your computer, don't you? I don't like you because you're kind of a nerd. Tommy's a great communicator as a salesman, but his wife is like this." Despite my efforts, she failed to understand that my interest in computers was the reason behind my job. While I didn't have poor communication skills, her words stung. She only masked her true feelings when my husband and father-in-law were around, putting on a facade of politeness. Her heartless remarks, made only in private, left me bitter and wary. Gradually, I had been avoiding my mother-in-law, visiting her less frequently. However, this time, I had no choice but to go since we were sharing the news of our baby's arrival. She had often asked if I had any children yet, so I hoped she would be pleased to hear the news. With a mix of anxiety and anticipation, my husband drove me to my in-law's house. My mother-in-law greeted me with her usual blank expression, but her demeanor shifted immediately when my husband spoke. "Mom, it's been a long time," he said warmly. Her face lit up with a smile, and her tone brightened. "Oh, Kelly, it's been ages. I hope you've been well." "Yes, I've been fine," I replied, trying to match her cheerful tone. "I'm glad to hear you're doing well too. Come on in, both of you," she invited us with a forced enthusiasm. As we entered the living room, my father-in-law welcomed us warmly, saying, "Oh, you've come a long way." I was about to sit on the sofa with my husband to chat with my father-in-law when my mother-in-law asked me to help with serving tea. I followed her to the kitchen, feeling a pang of discomfort. In the kitchen, my mother-in-law's demeanor changed completely. She looked at me coldly and said, "I haven't seen your irritating face in a while. I suppose you're still doing that lowly job of yours? I hear you plan to keep working even after the baby is born. I hope you're not going to make a foolish decision like that." Her harsh words stung, but I had to endure them. When I returned to the living room to serve tea, her attitude shifted again. In front of my husband and father-in-law, she was all smiles and acted like the perfect mother-in-law. When my husband announced my pregnancy, her reaction was a facade of joy. "I'm so happy, Kelly. Thank you. I can't wait to meet my grandchild. You're such a wonderful daughter-in-law." Her sudden change in attitude was bewildering, but I forced a smile in response. I was eager to leave after sharing the news. I just needed to navigate the conversation with polite responses and get out of there. Unexpectedly, something happened during the conversation that caught me off guard. It all began with a seemingly casual comment from my father-in-law. "Won't your current room feel a bit cramped once the baby arrives?" My husband, excited about the prospect of a new house, enthusiastically mentioned that we were considering building one. My mother-in-law, who had been quiet until then, perked up immediately. "You're building a house?" she asked, her tone oddly cheerful. I had a sinking feeling about where this was heading. Then my mother-in-law made a surprising suggestion. "Let's make it a two-family house." My husband and I were caught off guard. "What are you talking about, Mother?" he asked, his confusion evident. But my mother-in-law continued as if she hadn't noticed our reaction. "Since this house is getting old anyway, we could talking about either renovating it or selling it. If we convert it into a two-family house, we could support Kelly during her pregnancy and live with our grandchildren. Don't you think?" My father-in-law, still puzzled, responded, "Well, it would be nice to live with the grandchildren, wouldn't it?" My mother-in-law, as if she had prepared a convincing argument, added, "Exactly. It's not easy when you have a baby, especially since you plan to keep working after the baby is born, Kelly. It would be reassuring if I were around to help with the housework and childcare." Her pressure was palpable, and I could feel myself flinch. My husband, sensing my discomfort, said, "Well, it's an important decision, so we'll need to think about it. We should be heading home now that we've shared the news," he added, signaling it was time for us to leave. I was surprised by how excited my mother-in-law was about the news, but it was a relief to see her happy about the birth of our child. Despite her enthusiasm, I still felt apprehensive about living together. My past experiences with her left me doubtful. However, since then, my mother-in-law seemed to have changed her approach. She stopped the harsh comments and began regularly sending me emails to check on my health. Her texts were kind and considerate, without any of the unnecessary remarks I had grown accustomed to. I started to wonder if she had genuinely changed her attitude. After a long absence, I visited my in-laws for Thanksgiving, and their warmth was unexpected. Even when we were alone, she was kind and supportive. Newfound kindness made me reconsider my stance. When my husband asked me about the possibility of living together in the new house, I was more open to the idea. The deadline for completing the house was approaching quickly, and we needed to make a decision. I had been working closely with my mother-in-law, who had been increasingly kind. It began to feel like living in the same house might be manageable, especially with her help around the house and with childcare. I even started to think it would be beneficial to have her support. "Let's go ahead and build the two-family house," I suggested to my husband. He looked surprised. "Is that really a good idea? You've always had issues with my mom." I sensed he was carefully observing my reaction. While I still had reservations about her, I was reassured by how she had been treating me recently. "I think we could make it work now. She's been very kind, and it seems like we can get along." My husband seemed relieved. "I'm glad you feel that way. You're right, my mother can be a bit challenging, but I believe she'll help with the kids." We returned to the construction company to modify our plans for the two-family house. Since we had already settled on the floor plans, we expanded the rooms to accommodate the new arrangement. The process went smoothly, and we even visited the construction site with my in-laws. I was looking forward to the lively, new chapter with the arrival of our child. I was thrilled as we prepared to move into our new home. Construction was underway, and I was nearing the last trimester of my pregnancy. The excitement of starting this new chapter in our lives was palpable, and my in-laws seemed genuinely supportive. A few months later, I successfully gave birth to a healthy baby girl. My husband and in-laws were overjoyed. As we awaited the completion of our new house, anticipation grew. Finally, the house was ready. My husband and I brought our daughter to our new home for the first time. Coincidentally, my in-laws arrived at the same time, and together we entered the house with eager excitement. The new home was stunning, spacious, and beautifully designed. Just walking through it filled me with joy. Both my husband and father-in-law quickly settled into their new rooms, their faces beaming with contentment. Then, I was called to the kitchen by my mother-in-law. "Come here for a minute, Kelly," she said. I was surprised to find her at our house, but I went to the kitchen as requested. "What's wrong, Gemma?" I asked, puzzled. "I can finally tell you," she said coldly. "I want you to leave this house." I was taken aback, unable to grasp what was happening. My mother-in-law continued with a disdainful tone reminiscent of the past. "I didn't want to be kind to you, but I tolerated you because Tommy was building me a house. It's been tough these past 6 months, but now my efforts have paid off." "What do you mean?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. "I've never liked you. You kept your job even after having a child, and to top it off, it's a girl. You promised to help with the housework and childcare, but that was a lie to manipulate Tommy into doing what I wanted. Now that the house is built, you're no longer needed. Divorce Tommy." My heart sank as she added, "And I already have a new wife in mind for him." "What?" I gasped, shocked. "She's the daughter of an acquaintance of mine. She wants to be a housewife, so I plan to arrange for her to marry Tommy in his house." I was stunned into silence. My mother-in-law's cruel plans were far from what I had expected. Her face was a mask of triumph as she declared, "You incompetent wife, get a divorce and leave right now." At that moment, something inside me snapped. There would be no forgiveness for her cruelty. "You'll regret saying that," I said, my voice shaking. "Regret? Why?" she asked with a mocking tone. "Because this house," I began, but before I could finish, my husband arrived. "Hey Mom, I heard what you just said. What do you mean you're kicking Kelly out and planning to replace her?" he demanded. My mother-in-law looked momentarily startled by his interruption but quickly resumed her stance. "I'm only doing this for your own good," she said dismissively. My husband's face was a mix of anger and confusion as he stood up to his mother. The tension was palpable, and I knew that the future of our family was hanging in the balance. "I don't want this weak woman living in your house. Get a new wife who is young and can give birth to a son," my mother-in-law said with cold disdain. My husband's face turned pale as he confronted her. "What are you talking about? Kelly is the one who built this house. It's in her name." My mother-in-law's eyes widened in disbelief. "That's a lie." "No, it's not," my husband said firmly, his disgust evident. "I've explained this before. Kelly's income increased significantly when she became a freelancer. She makes enough to buy a house. What are you talking about? My mother-in-law asked, confused. Kelly earns about 10 times more than I do, my husband continued, his voice rising. She makes about $3 million a month. My mother-in-law's jaw dropped. Clearly, she had no idea about my earnings and was taken aback by the revelation. Just then, my father-in-law arrived, looking for us. I was wondering where you went and thought you might be here. What's going on? He asked, noticing the tension. My husband told my father-in-law everything my mother-in-law had said, his face reddened with anger. So you've been treating Kelly like this? You've been bullying her? That's unacceptable. My mother-in-law was visibly shaken by his reaction. Kelly, please be honest with me. Has my wife been mistreating you? I told my father-in-law everything honestly. How my mother-in-law had been difficult from the start of our marriage and only pretended to be kind during the house construction. His disappointment was clear as he glared at her. I'm already disappointed in you. I'm divorcing you. What? My mother-in-law stammered. I don't want to be with someone who can't care for the person important to her son, he declared. If I'm going to retire, I want to be with someone who genuinely cares. I will not be miserable in my old age. You're the one leaving. I'm divorcing you now. My mother-in-law was devastated and began to cry, unable to stand, but no one sided with her. My husband helped her into my father-in-law's car, and my father-in-law apologized to me before returning to their house. It turned out their house was already on the market, and he had expedited the move-out date to prepare for the worst. He served my mother-in-law with divorce papers and moved into our new duplex. At first, Dean was hesitant to live with us, but given our positive impression of him, we invited him to stay. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law, left with no job and no support, moved into a cheap, shabby apartment. The marriage arrangement she had hoped for her acquaintance's daughter and my husband was also canceled. Her untrustworthiness and attempts to meddle had left her isolated, and she quickly lost all her connections. Though I'm not sure what she has done since, I imagine her life is now quite difficult. On the other hand, our family of 4 is thriving. My father-in-law and husband dote on our daughter, and happiness fills our home each day. We look forward to continuing our lives together, supporting each other and enjoying our newfound peace.
My name is Jennifer, and at 43 years old, I find myself completely hooked on Spanish soap operas. Thanks to various streaming services, I've been binge-watching one dramatic series after another. There's something irresistible about the constant twists and turns, but little did I know my own life was about to rival any soap opera in drama. It was nearly 6 years ago, when I was living with my older husband. We had never been blessed with children, but I cherished our time together. That all changed one evening when I received a call from Monica, my best friend since childhood, who had even attended our wedding. Hey Jennifer, it's been a while. I wanted to let you know that I got divorced. Monica said. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It sounds like a tough time. Let's get together for drinks soon, I replied, trying to offer some comfort. When I got home, I was about to tell my husband about Monica's news, but he surprised me by saying, I know Monica's divorced. I was taken aback. How did you know about that? I haven't mentioned it to you yet. He looked at me with an expression that suggested he was piecing something together. I think I overheard something, he said, though his vague explanation left me puzzled. I shrugged off the confusion and told him, yes, Monica is divorced. We're planning to meet up for drinks soon. My husband then asked, can I come along? I was puzzled. I thought it was supposed to be a girls' night out. Despite my hesitation, I agreed to ask Monica if it was all right for him to join us. To my surprise, Monica responded enthusiastically, sure, let's all go out for drinks together. I was disappointed, wishing for a girls-only evening, but I relented. In the end, the 3 of us, my husband Monica, and I, met up for drinks. The night turned out to be quite enjoyable. Monica vented about her ex-husband's shortcomings, and we all shared laughs over her stories. It felt like we were having a great time, but when I excused myself to use the restroom and returned, I was taken aback by the sight of Monica and my husband gazing deeply into each other's eyes and engaged in a conversation that seemed a bit too intimate. A knot formed in my stomach as I took in the scene. The evening had started off as a simple gathering, but now I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was amiss. Couldn't shake the feeling that something seemed too intimate between them. They hadn't seen each other since our wedding, so how did they become so chummy after just a few drinks? It felt like I was intruding on a date between two people who were clearly more than just old friends. When I returned to my seat, they had resumed their normal demeanor, acting as if nothing had happened. I wondered if I was overreacting, but the uneasy feeling lingered. As the evening drew to a close, I decided it was time to settle the bill and leave. Monica was quite drunk, and my husband casually mentioned, "I'll take her home." His nonchalant attitude caught me off guard. "I'm going to take her home" sounded more like a command than a suggestion, as if he was deciding on his own. I protested, "I'm not as drunk as she is, but I've had a few drinks too. Besides, I'm your wife. It's too late for her to be alone, and she's in no condition to get home safely." He insisted, "You take a cab and go home yourself. She's fine. I'll make sure she gets home." I was taken aback. "If you take her in a cab, she'll go straight to her apartment, won't she? I'm worried she won't make it on her own." I knew Monica was living alone, and it was possible she had mentioned this while I was in the restroom. The discomfort I felt quickly turned into disbelief. "Fine then. I'll go home myself," I said. I left them at the restaurant, feeling a mix of unease and determination. As much as I didn't want to leave Monica alone with my husband, I realized it might be more useful for me to return home and investigate their relationship. Once I arrived home, I headed straight to my husband's study. A room that wasn't a bedroom, but a private space where he might keep important information. As I searched through the room, I realized that if I could find answers in Monica's house, it would be quite an invasion of privacy. Still, the conflict in my mind was overwhelming. While rummaging through the shelves, I stumbled upon a basic photo album, one I didn't recall seeing when we moved in. With a sinking feeling, I began flipping through the pages. I should have stopped, but it was too late. The album was filled with photos of my husband and Monica, both beaming with happiness. Judging by Monica's hairstyle and the way my husband's clothes looked, it was clear they had been meeting secretly for years, possibly since shortly after our marriage. They had been involved in an intense relationship for over a decade. The shock and the combination of my hunger and alcohol left me feeling nauseous. I rushed to the bathroom, barely making it before I began to throw up. Just as I was trying to compose myself, my husband came home. "Oh, you're throwing up? Did you drink that much?" he asked, rubbing my back. I snapped, "Don't touch me," and slapped his hand away. "Just wait a second. I need to get some water." He seemed to think I was too drunk to know what was going on. "Yes, I know who you are," I said bitterly. "I just hate you right now. I wish I could get so drunk I'd forget how much this hurts. Wait here. We need to talk," he said, clearly trying to lighten the mood with a laugh. I glared at him, trying to catch my breath. "Is this your idea of a joke? Are you trying to make light of the situation because I'm upset about you dropping her off?" He shrugged, seemingly unaware of the gravity of the moment. "Well, let's adjust the tone then. First question. What's this picture about?" I confronted him with the album I had discovered in his room, simply showing him the cover. His face turned pale as he saw it. "Let's start with a yes or no question," I said. "Is there any wife in the world who could look at this picture and be okay with it? You know, considering what it shows." He remained silent, and I pressed on, "How do you think I feel right now? Go ahead, give me an answer." When he didn't respond, I snapped, "Why aren't you saying anything? Why just sit there in silence?" His silence only heightened my frustration. "Okay, I cheated. I'm really stupid. I'm truly sorry," he finally admitted, his voice lacking sincerity. I wished he would just show some real remorse, maybe even cry a little. His silence was unbearable. Then finally he spoke. She's the one for me. Monica and I, we were both married to the wrong partners. After everything, we finally found each other. I feel like we're soulmates, destined to be together. I was stunned. Soulmates? Are you suddenly a poet or something? He continued, I realize now that I made a mistake marrying you. Our soul vibrations are different. We can't be happy together. This is a test of fate for me and Monica. His words were so disconnected from reality that I could hardly process them. So, we're not connected on a spiritual level. Is that what you're saying? I stared at him, speechless, struggling to grasp the bizarre turn of our conversation. I was completely baffled by his words. I couldn't make sense of what he was saying. Only that he and I were hopelessly incompatible. My best friend had betrayed me, my husband had betrayed me, and honestly, I was beyond tears. I don't understand what you're talking about, I said, feeling numb. All I know is that you and I are hopelessly incompatible. If you're so keen on being with Monica, then fine. I'm willing to let you go, because you've been a terrible husband. He seemed to be speaking in riddles, and it only made my frustration grow. I don't think you and I are compatible either, I said flatly. You've clearly lost your mind, but I still don't understand what you're on about. I knew you'd say that, he replied, seemingly resigned. So you'll agree to a peaceful divorce, right? I replied, so you won't be paying alimony then. He didn't seem to grasp the gravity of the situation. I don't think I'm in the right spiritual mindset to deal with you right now, he said, his voice trailing off as if he were in a different world. His incoherence was almost maddening. What's the matter with you, Jen? He asked. I responded with an equally ridiculous answer. I'm ignoring your absurd divorce request. Ignoring his pleas, I headed to the shower. He continued to shout from the other room, criticizing me and demanding a response. I'll never be free unless you agree to divorce me, he yelled. I ignored him completely. You'll be free to do what you want, and I'll be free from you. From this day on, you're nothing but a piece of trash to me, as insignificant as mold in a bathtub. The next morning, my husband left for work in a foul mood. I didn't greet him, prepare his breakfast, or even help him with his tie. I had taken the day off after our night out, and I got up just in time to see him leave. Well, from today on, I'll be living alone. I decided to tidy up my room, and by the evening, when my husband came home, I heard him call out from the front porch, I'm home. But I didn't respond. Soon he was shouting about his missing shoes. Hey Jen, where are my shoes? And why are you eating without me? I remained silent, watching TV and enjoying my steak and fine champagne. Yes, I threw away your shoes, I called out without looking at him. It's normal to eat alone since I live here by myself. I have quite a bit saved up, so I'm treating myself. He sounded frustrated. Jen, are you even listening? I poured myself another glass of champagne, ignoring him. We'll talk after I get out of the shower, he said, but I could hear the irritation in his voice. As I heard him clattering around upstairs, I knew he was searching for his pajamas. Then he called down, Jen, why is there nothing in my room? Where are my pajamas? I can't even take a bath without any clothes. I replied calmly, I live alone now. You'll have to figure it out. I quickly finished my meal and went to my room, showing no reaction to his distress. He followed me, asking where his food was. Go buy your own, I said. I've told you repeatedly that I live alone. I had already finished my bath, so I headed straight to the bedroom. I had even disposed of his toothbrush, curious to see how he would manage in the morning. When I woke up, my husband was sitting in a chair, looking like Roddins the Thinker. He must have been in such a rush last night that he didn't manage to properly get ready. His hair was sticky and messy, exposing his scalp. As soon as he saw me, he tried to compose himself and got down on his knees, desperately apologizing. I was genuinely shocked by how far he was willing to go. It hurts me to know how you've treated me, but I realize I've done terrible things to you without considering your feelings," he said, his voice full of regret. "I'm sorry for that." His apology was exactly what I needed to hear, but I didn't respond. "I want us to start over," he added, hoping for a second chance. I was stunned into silence. I gave him a look of sheer disgust. No, I said. "I can't live with someone who is spiritually lost, cheats, and causes so much trouble." His shock was palpable. "You don't like that?" he asked, clearly taken aback. "Think about what you did," I said coldly. "Say something if you have a clue." He pleaded, "I'll do whatever you say." I knew he was falling back on his usual tactics. Promises and material gifts whenever we had a fight. But this time I was prepared. "Okay then, do as I say," I replied, the words I'd been waiting to say finally escaping my lips. I smiled, and his face fell, a look of despair spreading across it. I wanted to see that expression. No, I corrected myself. "I don't mean it like that." His confusion was evident. "I have no intention of accepting any terms," I continued. "Do you really think you can just brush off your infidelity after all this time?" "I'm taking action against both you and Monica," I declared. "I'll do everything in my power to hold both of you accountable. And I'll inform Monica's ex-husband as well. You'll both be facing alimony claims." He looked at me with wide eyes. "Good luck paying them," I said. "Come on, get up and take your things with you." I forced him to gather his belongings and dragged him to the front door. "Where are you taking me?" he asked, bewildered. "Outside," I said firmly. "I'm taking over this house. It's mine now. I don't want any more strangers in my home." "Wait, can't you at least wait until after the divorce?" he pleaded. "That's not going to happen," I snapped back. "Why not?" "What the hell, Jen? You just started talking all of a sudden and then you were so cold. Shut up and get out." I shoved him out the front door with all my might. The strength I was able to muster came from the years of accumulated stress and anger. It's strange how much negative energy can build up over time. Before the divorce papers were finalized, we all, my husband Monica, her ex-husband, and I, met to discuss things. Monica admitted she had fallen for my husband at our wedding and had approached him immediately afterward. Their affair began then, and they had been discreetly continuing their relationship, hoping to stay under the radar until they were both free. They had been cheating on both their families. Monica's ex-husband was devastated when he first learned of the affair. I had no sympathy for the situation. Instead, I was relieved. The evidence they provided would support my claim for alimony. After being kicked out of our home, my husband moved in with Monica. But when she received the alimony demands from both me and her ex-husband, reality hit her hard. "We can't remarry if we're in debt," she said. "I need to find someone with better financial prospects." She gave him the boot, despite her claims of a spiritual connection with him. "Isn't she the soulmate you thought you were connected to on a deeper level? And now you're losing her over money." I couldn't help but feel disgusted by their predicament. Suck it up, I thought. This is what you get for betraying your wife. 6 years have passed since then. While I was paying alimony, my ex-husband retired and had to spend most of his retirement funds on those payments. He still struggles, and Monica's situation isn't any better. She's living in tough conditions, having exhausted her savings on alimony, and no man would want to remarry her in her current state. As for me, I've been earning well but haven't done anything special with my money except focus on work. Life is unpredictable, so I'm trying to live modestly and do what I enjoy. They say, if you're prepared for anything, you're prepared for everything. I've been enjoying watching Spanish soap operas every day. Recently, I met someone at work who shares my interest, and we're even talking about traveling to Spain together someday. I look forward to that day, and I'm not concerned with soul vibrations. For now, my goal is to live happily and peacefully.